Kia ora and welcome to Module 4. How did you find the previous module on grooming? Grooming is a serious and challenging topic, but an important one in safeguarding our whānau. If you found some of what you heard hard, or it made you upset, take courage and give yourself space to ask the Holy Spirit to show you what it was, and then speak to someone you trust about it. Please do not ignore it. Today's module is called Screening and Vetting. Our presenter is Pastor Malcolm Bayliss. Malcolm has previously served as a local church pastor and missionary. He now serves as the regional overseer for the Wellington region. With over 7 years' experience in child protection, he has contributed to policy development and presented training for churches, organisations and parents. Malcolm is passionate about creating safer environments for children. Open your heart to be inspired. Welcome, Pastor Malcolm.
Welcome to Module 4 on Screening and Vetting. In this module, we will be looking at why screening and vetting is important, what it involves, and how we can all protect the children and young people in our church communities. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the importance of screening and vetting, know what it entails, and know who should be screened and vetted to ensure the protection of children and youth in our churches. Being aware of the realities and risks around the safety and protection of children and young people is crucial. It helps us understand why preventative measures such as screening and vetting are so very necessary. New Zealand has a very sad record when it comes to child abuse, and this places a clear responsibility on us to protect the children and young people involved in our church programs and wider community. In New Zealand, 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 7 boys will experience sexual abuse before the age of 16. Screening is the internal process of identifying people who are suitable to work with children and young people. That is, those who can be trusted to help keep them safe. It involves carefully gathering and assessing relevant information about the applicant so that, having considered the risks, you can be confident the person is safe and appropriate for the specific role they are applying for or volunteering in. Vetting is the external process that refers to formal background checks carried out by external agencies, such as the New Zealand Police Vetting Service or criminal record checks. These checks help us to make informed decisions about who is appropriate to work with children and young people. So why screen and vet? The most effective time for a church to reduce the risk of abuse to children and young people is at the time of appointing new leaders and helpers. What we do or fail to do at this stage matters greatly. Firstly, screening and vetting act as deterrents. People who intend to harm children and young people are far less likely to place themselves within a church where they know questions will be asked and background checks are required. Sadly, some abusers deliberately target churches because they assume trust will replace accountability. Secondly, they communicate commitment. Screening and vetting sends a clear signal to applicants, volunteers, parents and the wider church community that child protection is taken seriously and that any form of abuse is not tolerated. Next, they build trust. When a church allows an adult to have access to children and young people, parents assume that that person has been appropriately checked and is safe to work with their children and youth. And finally, they help ensure safety. Screening and vetting enables church leaders to gather and assess relevant information so that informed decisions can be made about whether a person is safe and suitable for working with children and young people. Screening involves gathering and assessing information to determine suitability. Identity verification. Identity must be confirmed using formal documents such as a passport, birth certificate, or a driver's license, and at least one document should include a photograph. There have been cases where individuals have gained access to children using false identities or qualifications, making this step so essential. Application forms and curriculum vitae. Application forms and CVs provide important background information about the applicant and their experience. Work and volunteer history. Collecting a clear record of a person's work and volunteer history helps us understand their skills, experience, interest, and personal attributes. A chronological record covering the past 10 years should be provided wherever possible. Reference checks. References should be obtained from at least 2 people who have known the applicant for a minimum of 2 years in a leadership capacity. This could include a current pastor and a workplace manager or supervisor. Agreement to abide by policies. All applicants must read the church's child protection policy, procedures, and code of conduct and formally agree to abide by them. Interviews. A face-to-face interview allows information provided in the application to be confirmed and gives insight into a person's motivations, attitudes, and understanding of working with children and young people. What to look for? Frequent changes of employment or churches for seemingly unclear reasons or that look like they facilitate access to children and youth. Unexplained gaps in their work or volunteer history. And the questions about abuse. It is essential that questions relating to a person's behaviour towards children and youth are asked, because this gives the applicant opportunity to disclose information that may impact on their suitability for ministry to children and youth. It also assists the church leadership in making an informed decision about the prospective worker's suitability for children's work. So important to note to always ask clear, respectful questions about behaviour towards children or young people. A church must be registered with the New Zealand Police Vetting Service before they are able to request police vets for individuals. To be eligible to access the Police Vetting Service, the church must employ or engage individuals for one or more of the following purposes: providing care, protection, education, or training to vulnerable members of society, such as children, young people, the elderly, and/or disabled persons. A police vet can only be requested when consent is given by the individual being vetted in the police vetting request and consent form. It's also important to note that 14 to 15-year-olds will need parents or guardians' consent to be vetted, and a police vet provides a point-in-time check. The church ultimately decides if the person is suitable for the role applied for. So who should be screened and vetted? Firstly, everyone who works directly with children or youth, including leaders, helpers, and volunteers. Also, everyone in a position of authority within the church that gives them access to children or young people, even if they are not directly involved in children's ministry. Also, pastors, department leaders, etc. It is most important to note, screening and vetting should be completed before a person is appointed and begins in their role. And anyone who refuses to be screened or vetted must not be allowed to work with children or youth in any capacity within the church. It is the responsibility of senior pastors and church boards to ensure that screening and vetting is completed for all relevant roles and that records are kept securely and confidentially. Screening and vetting are not just administrative tasks, they are clear expressions of our commitment to care for the most vulnerable within our churches and communities. By taking these steps carefully and consistently, we honour our responsibility before God, our church family, and our community to keep children and young people safe.